Alright, hello again guys and welcome to today's video. So today what I want to do is discuss the issues about watch loom. Now loom is a common term used in the community. It's short for obviously luminous substance or luminous paint that is used in a lot of watches. Almost all watches you're going to get your hands on, particularly casual or dive, are going to have some level of luminous paint. And there's varying levels of luminosity, and there's also a history behind luminous paints. So what I have here is a display of various different watches, and all of them contain slightly different luminous paints. Now, historically, initially there was use of radioactive materials. There still are, although today it's in a more of a safe way, but previously they used to have radioactive paint. And more recent history, the radioactive paint has been containing tritium. Now tritium is an isotope of hydrogen, it's H3, and as it decays, it releases beta decay radiation, and those are electrons. As far as I understand it, tritium is a relatively low level of radiation, and therefore considered, reasonably safe, but it is still radiation, and people are always going to be concerned about that. So I think it's going to be rarely used today, any radioactive type of paint. If you can see this older Rolex Submariner at the bottom there, there is a marking with Swiss T less than 25. I'm not sure if it's coming up very easily there, but it's there at the bottom. And that really is a radiation stipulation saying that it radiates, the tritium in the paint radiates less than 25 millicoulombs. That's the unit. And I can tell you that this watch no longer has any luminosity. It's nearly 30 years old, and tritium has a half-life of about 12 years. So this is well beyond two half-lives. It typically no longer has any function at that age. The other common form of tritium that you see nowadays in modern watches is gas tubes, and Ball is a brand that's famous for that. And this basically is a loom achieved by capturing tritium gas in microtubes, which they use to construct the loom. And if you look at most of the Ball watches, you'll see that, for example, look at the 12, it's constructed with no less than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 microtubes. The tritium is contained in the tubes, but the radiation hits fluorescent or phosphorescent paint on the inside of the tubes, and then light is emitted, not actual radiation. So they tell you that there's no radiation that the user will be exposed to with this type of technology. So that's your radioactive loom. The other big category of loom is that of non-radioactive, and that's achieved by typically paints. Now, previously, we have an example of an older watch here. It's actually an old favorite of mine. This is a Tag Heuer 3000 Professional. It wasn't considered a great watch, but I wore this for years throughout high school. And this has an old loom. It hardly works anymore, and it's an old, I'm pretty sure it's an old zinc sulfide base compound. And those were the old loom compounds. Newer compounds are based on strontium aluminate, much better function, much better longevity, and used in almost all modern brands will be using a strontium based compound. This is an Invicta. Invicta have their own brand of loom called Tritonite, or Tritnite, Tritnite. Very varying quality in performance. Supposedly they say it works well, but I think in experience, I've read lots of different varying experiences, from nearly non-functional to as good as Superluminova. So To each his own. You're talking about a watch here of less than 100 US. I don't expect perfection at that level. Next level up, you have your a lot of the better Japanese brands have their own in-house loom, Citizen and Seiko. I don't think Citizen have a name for their loom, but their loom performs, by all reports, very well. And I will be taking a loom photograph slideshow later on this video, and you can make a judge for yourself how it performs. Seiko currently uses their own proprietary loom called LumiBrite, and here's an example of a watch that uses LumiBrite. This one is painted on the dial, and it's fairly thickly applied. You can see, well, if you can see, I don't know if this captures it, there's a dot that raises up in the area of loom on each of those indices. And then at the higher end, Swiss watches typically will be using the compound called Super, get that in focus, Super Luminova, which is interestingly, I think is a patent owned by a Japanese company called Nomoto and Co. And there's a European partner that distributes it. So brands like Oris, Omega, Breitling, what have you, will be using Super Luminova, and it's considered probably the standard and state of the art in terms of loom paint. Arguably other brands work as well, but this seems to be the respected standard these days. Does Super Luminova degrade? Well, reportedly it will degrade in function about 20% after every greater than 1,000 hours of direct sunlight exposure. So there you go. If you are exposing this to UV degradation, that's the type of degradation you can expect. 20% per 1,000 hours or greater than 1,000 hours of direct sunlight exposure. And right at the end, I have an example of my beloved Omega Seamaster Professional, again Super Luminova. So what I've ordered here for the loom shots later on is a rough guess of how they should function. I don't expect this to function very well at all. In fact, I think I know it doesn't. Invicta, I don't expect much of. And then Citizen and Seiko, probably much the same. I think they're well respected, but I expect Seiko talks a lot about LumiBrite. So I'll put that, maybe I'll put some punting on that being slightly better, but who knows. And then these are the newer Super Luminova watches. Why did I put the Omega at the top? Well, no reason why you should actually. In fact, probably you might expect the indices here to work better because they have a larger amount of paint, but Omega costs more. That's why I've put it right on the right side. So I'm gonna stop the video now and take it through a slideshow of loom shots. Now the first shot will be just a preparation shot of the box, and then what I did was I took it out to direct sunlight for a full minute, direct Australian sunlight. Now we got some serious problems with the ozone layer here, so we got more UV than other places in the world, so that's some serious charging. And then I took it into a dark room, immediately photographed the shot, then photographed it an hour later, and then 2 hours later. And I put this at the top for a reference of a modern ball tritium gas tube watch. So, take a look at the slideshow and then we'll come back and talk about the results. Okay, welcome back. So, as you can see, I think I was surprised somewhat by some of the results. I think expectedly that failed. to perform. But you know, that's a 30-year-old watch. That's a 1980s watch. Not surprising that that's gone, and that's a zinc sulfide old compound. Invicta was the poorest, or the next poorest for a new watch, or a watch that's, you know, modern. You know, the hands did not too bad initially, and then it faded. I think that's an example of showing us that where the paint amount matters. You know, the more paint, the more the lume functions. And in the Japanese watches, I think I was somewhat surprised that the Citizen seemed to do a little bit better than the Seiko, particularly as the Seiko does seem to have more generous amounts of lume. I was somewhat surprised that this was slightly better. They're both, you know, good, but that was actually slightly better at the 1 hour, 2 hour mark. And then off the Swiss watches, actually, I must say the Oris looked better. Looked like it lasts better, and that's again a testament of amount of paint, you know, roughly correlating with longer lasting performance. And look, I think, you know, any comparison of lume has to be a lapse of time. You know, there's probably very little point taking a photo or a video just after exposure. You have to show the degradation over time. And the other key is that you have to keep your exposure the same, otherwise there's not much meaning. So the photographs were taken at 1/5 of a second at f1.8 on a lens that is 28 millimeters equivalent at ISO 3200. Now, if people into photography will know that that is a lot of exposure, and we're not getting a lot of lume at the end of the 1 hour, 2 hour shots. And certainly, as you saw with the performance of the ball watch, this, I would say, outperforms any of those after the first, half an hour, 45 minutes. And certainly at that 1 hour mark, this is doing better than any of the lume paint. And as you know, tritium gas tubes don't need to be charged. They will glow the same brightness throughout the night. And they will degrade only very slowly. So again, a half-life of 12 years. Functional lifetime, people say 10 years. Some, the companies will want you to believe they work for 20 years, but, to each his own, you make your own judgment. A lot of people seem to say that functionally, they're probably not at a very high performance after about 10 years. So there you have it. That's today's video on watch lume. I hope that's been informative. Let us know what you think. Give us a subscribe if you like my videos. Welcome comments always. And yeah, again, thank you for watching, and see you guys next time.